In April of 2021, I started having these dreams about Wisconsin, and it's kind of weird. You have a dream and you think, well, it's just another dream. But this time I had a dream that I just kind of saw the entire state of Wisconsin. Never been to Wisconsin in my life. April 2021. So I started praying about it, asking God, do you want me to go to Wisconsin? It was like this couple of months worth of praying, asking God, do you want me to go to Wisconsin? And what you know it, I got the answer yes. Now the way that he got me here is crazy, and I'm literally in Wisconsin right now. So I ended up meeting a girl. Her name was Myra, horse trainer, and we just started dating, fell in love, came here for Christmas 2021, and instant connection, ultimate love story. You're probably hearing this and you're like, oh, this guy found love. Not exactly. Like no joke, April of 2022. So in April of 2021, God starts calling me to Wisconsin. I meet this girl. We start dating. I come here in December 2021 for a visit. Spend Christmas with her. She's a farmer, so the rest of the story is history. I come and then in April of 2022 we break up, and I was in Wisconsin. As you can imagine, I was so angry at God. I was angry at that girl. I was angry at everyone. I was angry at myself. I thought I got played. And those 5 months were the longest 5 months of my life. And there was even a moment that I just wanted to end my life. So in Wisconsin, what was I doing? Well, I originally got a job as a manager at Dollar General, which was an amazing blessing because I really wanted to get back to retail. Now, Dollar General, the pay wasn't that good, and I fell behind my car payment. I only made enough to pay my rent. I was paying my rent to my ex's dad. I was living in a cabin, which was a blessing too, because I actually wanted to live in a cabin in the middle of the woods. I wanted to do it, try it out, see what it's like, and I got to. And so the whole thing was a blessing, and at the same time, it was just, I was so sad and angry and mixed with emotions, and I didn't want to be here, so I actually left. I packed up all my bags in August 2022, went back to Texas. At that moment, right, you're like, God, what are you doing? What are you doing right now, God? See, one thing I learned through the entire experience was being alone just wasn't the idea. It wasn't the plan, and it sure wasn't fun. That loneliness drove me to the point of picking up everything and just leaving and going back to Texas. See, mankind, people were not created to do life alone. Some of y'all are wondering, what does my life have to do with Elijah? This is the study of the life of Elijah, so what does my life have to do with Elijah? Well, during that whole time period, I heard Dr. David Jeremiah preach on Elijah. I also heard another preacher preach on Elijah. I forgot the guy's name. He's a famous one out in California. You know what? My mind just went blank. But a bunch of preachers started talking about Elijah. Even when I was about to go back to Texas and leave everything, my ex's dad told me a story about Elijah and Jezebel. Jezebel gets up, she starts pursuing Elijah, she's gonna kill him, and then I had another person tell me about the same story of Elijah and Jezebel, but that person was from Texas. So I had a guy from Texas and someone else from Wisconsin, and they were both urging me, or actually I think it was 3 people. My pastor told me the same story. So I had 3 people tell me about the same story from the book of Elijah. when I just got done with Wisconsin. All three of them did not know each other. They told me the same exact story, and I figured maybe God is speaking to me. And so this is when this Bible study starts getting risen. Because I believed that God was speaking to me. I wanted to know what was God saying. And so I sat down, read the story of Elijah, and I decided to write a Bible study. What you know it, wrote a Bible study. Okay, so guys, if you don't know, go to my website, www.jesusalonesaves.org. Many Bible studies that you can read from, and devotions. There's even a join the community link. It's an app. Go check it out. Get involved and help other believers grow in their faith. This is a team thing. We are all in it together. We are all in it to watch the nations accept Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. So I hear all these preachers talking about Elijah, and they all tell me the same story, right? So I started thinking, man, maybe God is speaking to me with this story of Elijah. Such a key person keeps popping up. So I start reading the story. We get to 1 Kings 17. 1 Kings chapter 17. Okay? If you don't have a Bible, you can go BibleGateway.com. Check it out. Read the chapter. 1 Kings 17. And here's what I got from it, at least. So, God seems to start Elijah off with very simple instructions. He sent him to the brook Cherith. These words in the Bible are like complicated to say. So if you can't say them, I can't either. I'm the preacher, right? So you're in good hands, because I can't say these names of the cities and people and crazy names. So God sends him to the brook of Cherith, where the ravens would provide for his food and water. So God sends him to this brook. The ravens feed him food and water. No effort of Elijah, just straight grace of God. So the reason for this is Elijah told Ahab, who's the king of Israel at the time, that there will be no rain in the land for 3 years. You can imagine Ahab wanted the head of Elijah for bringing judgment down on the land like that. The reason for the judgment has to do with the wickedness of Ahab. Ahab was an evil king, and he was at the climax of how evil the kings of Israel became. It says in 1 Kings 16:30, Ahab did evil in the sight of the Lord, more than all who were before him. The conduct of the ruler of this nation brought judgment, and not just on the leader, but on the entire nation. In nations like the United States and the United Kingdom and other nations around the world that have the freedom to elect our officials, we need to ensure these leaders from local to federal levels are going to honor the God of heaven, Yahweh. Because that judgment won't just touch those leaders, but all of the nation. Just like Elijah, we are to say something and not just be silent on the fact that others who are in charge of things are not doing what is right. It's easy for us to point out the finger and blame others, but we have the responsibility also in our freedom to elect these leaders. We have responsibility in our freedom to elect the leaders who honor God. And if we don't, the judgment that falls on the nation that we are in because of it, that's our own fault. That's our fault if we don't elect the right leaders. Do our due diligence. Don't elect someone because of the color of their skin, or because of their religion, or because they say they're Christian. Look at someone's life, what they value. Do they value life like God values life? Do they value honesty like God values honesty? Do they value these things that God values? Are they gonna rule the nation in a way that God desires our king to rule in a righteous way? In Proverbs it says that when a evil ruler reigns, the people mourn, but when the righteous reign, the people rejoice. So it's important that we take responsibility when you go to the voter's office, when you vote for local government officials, and for the state government officials, and for the federal government officials. After God takes care of Elijah with no effort of his own, he gives him another set of instructions. He tells him to go to the widow and Sareptath. I can't say it. That's one of those words I just can't say. Sareptath, right? He says, go to the widow in Sareptath, and she's gonna feed you. So God tells him to go, and the widow's gonna feed him. Well, he goes, and the widow tells Elijah, I can't feed you. I don't have enough food to feed you. I'm not gonna have food for myself or my son or my family. And Elijah goes and tells her, hey, if you feed me, you're not gonna run out of oil. You're not gonna run out of flour. See, this is a story of both the faith of the widow, right? The widow has to have faith that she's not going to run out of flour or oil for the rest of the season of there being a drought, of no water. So the widow takes faith and feeds Elijah. But then you also look at it, Elijah has to have faith to say, hey, like, Miss Widow, if you feed me, then God's gonna bless you. Like, you're not gonna run out of any flour or oil. See, most of the time, we get the answer no, right? But like, we know God has promised us A, B, C, and D. But then we hit a brick wall, and we get the answer no. And then we just kind of give up and we walk away, and we're like, well, maybe God didn't really tell me or promise me whatever. God wants us to be consistent. He wants us to show faith and consistency and belief that what he said will happen. Elijah has to put in some effort and by faith ask the widow for help. And the widow has to have faith to help Elijah. So it goes both ways. The widow has to have faith as much as Elijah needs to have faith that this is how God is going to provide. So God's not going to make it easy on us. He's going to give us a promise. He promised something. He's going to see it as being fulfilled if we believe, if we act on that faith that God has promised us something. Now we have to act upon the faith. See, sometimes, God's gonna let us sit back and we do nothing, and the ravens are just gonna feed us. But other times we have to take a step of faith and act upon the faith that God has given us the promise, and we need to take hold of the promise. And at times that's going to require us to do something. And so as Christians, we need to take hold of the promise that God has given us, acting upon the faith. So the first story, God provides using the birds, nothing for Elijah to do. In the next story, God provides through a widow, but Elijah has to do something. He has to go claim that promise. Did God promise you something? Sometimes God will just make that promise come to pass with no effort from us. But other times, God is going to make that promise come pass. But He wants us to be involved in that plan and doing things to make those doors open. I believe God promised me a wife. So guess what? I'm going to go and sign up on some dating apps. I'm going to go sign up on some, ChristianMingle.com or whatever. I'm going to go search. I'm going to go do something to do what? To obtain the promise. Look at Abraham. He had to do something to what? To obtain the promise. Look at Moses and the people of Hebrew. The slaves, Moses and the slaves, they had to do something for what? To obtain the promise. He's not going to make it easy for us to obtain the promise, but He has those promises for us if we are willing to get up, walk by faith, not sit by faith, walk by faith. Get up and do something and obtain the promise. We need to be more like Elijah in this manner and stop thinking that God's going to make everything easy for us just because He promised things to us. So we need to do what? Get up and walk by faith, not by sight, not because the widow said no. We need to continue and be persistent and not give up, because God did promise us something, but more times than not, we need to make the move, initiate, and take hold of the promise of God. Hey, thanks for listening to part 1 of the life of Elijah. If you haven't yet, consider subscribing for more content like this. And also visit JesusAloneSaves.org and grow in your faith every day. God bless you and have a great day.